Good evening, everyone. It is 10 p.m. here on the East Coast, and it is time for your favorite relationship podcast, vodcast, or whatever you call it on the internet. Welcome to TwitchLine, everyone. I am your caster, Hodo, joined as always with my friend Acorn, also known myself, Z, and Tim. Tim, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, doing well. Ready to pick apart people's psyches and get at what makes them tick.
Yes, we're going to be helping people from Reddit tonight try to figure out some issues with regards to their problem. So, we will be answering, hopefully, questions that people have on Reddit regarding various topics in their relationships. As always, you can contact us via Gmail if you do have a question, and we will feature it here on the channel. Contact us at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to tweet, you can tweet us at TwitchLine on Twitter. You can also join our YouTube channel there at the bottom. If you go to the bottom of our channel, we post copies of our live show on our YouTube channel, usually 1 to 2 days after we go live here on Twitch, so that if you wanted to go back and listen about a specific topic that we discuss, something that really, really relates to you, you can go back and watch it there on YouTube. We will be starting to add timestamps to the specific topics so that you can click directly onto the topic that you want to do. We usually spend around 20 minutes or topic or so, so therefore we really try to go as in depth as possible when we are talking about all the individual topics that we will talk about tonight. And tonight we have a very interesting topic to start off the night here, Tim. It is about marriage. So not a lot of people, maybe there are a lot of people, I don't know, that are on Twitch who are married, but you are one of them, personally married to a beautiful young lady, and you are, I guess, in my eyes, the marriage expert because you're the one that's married. So how about you
So
start
far,
off?
so good.
So far, so good. They're happily married, folks. So it's one of those things in which it's like, it's like I will defer marriage questions to the man that is actually married. But let's have Mr. Acorn here start us off here with the first topic.
All right, so let's go ahead. This is from the Dating Over 30 Reddit, 30 years old and higher.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I guess that would also be that kind of age time frame for people in marriage. So, yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it is by a user Cheap Throwaway 69, which I'm going to go ahead and say is a throwaway account. Um, And the question is, does marriage inherently mean codependency? The user says, I'm confused about how much to share with someone you're in a relationship with. I think all of my relationships have resulted in codependency, meaning I spend a lot of time with them and I share my inner vulnerable emotions and problems. I'm starting to feel like this isn't exactly healthy and that it takes wisdom and tact to know exactly what exactly to share and how to share it. Coming back to marriage, if you're going to live with someone for the rest of your life, have kids with them, share responsibilities and bills and friends, how could you possibly not be codependent on them? You have to rely on them for things, tell them about your emotions in life, and see them all the time. Where is the boundary between codependency and a healthy relationship or marriage? Yeah, big question there.
Yeah, it's a very
Um,
deep question, I think.
sure, and it requires personal definitions of what codependency might be. And it can vary from person to person, relationship to relationship. But if we just go for like an overarching general definition, it would be where one person enables another person's addiction, poor mental health, immaturity, irresponsibility, underachievement. Basically, uh, it is a dysfunctional relationship where one side and or both sides depend too much on the other, and that can be across the spectrum as far as different areas of your life, and and it can be really really damaging. So uh, I think initially the first thing we have to look at tonight is what is the difference between sharing and an unhealthy sharing,
Mm.
right? And are we carrying our own loads? So uh, you know two people that come together in a mature adult relationship should be able to say, uh, I bring what I have to this relationship, and I'm looking for a balanced partner who also brings what they bring, and then we can individually combine to to have something healthy and fruitful. Uh, in the unhealthy sharing, one side is actually like the other one can't make it without their partner. Something is severely lacking, or something is really off about how they what they require from their partner, so that it creates an imbalance. And usually, it's I mean, I wouldn't say it's usually unidirectional or one directional, but that uh, people can be codependent in different ways,
Hmm.
perhaps. Um, so a lot of it is kind of it's personal. Some people actually have functional codependent relationships. Those things that they rely on each other for, it actually works out for them. I mean, they say, okay, I'm not strong here, and you are, so you can carry me through this part, and they can go on in their lives, and that can continue, even though it's not necessarily healthy as individuals in a relationship. It functions for their combo or whatever. Any ideas on this?
Yeah, I think the definition of codependency is very, very important here. I think in a lot of relationships, you see sort of one-sided relationships that happen. In a way, that's very, in my opinion, is somewhat codependent. When one person sort of dominates a relationship, or like a man or a woman, the man dominates or the woman dominates, and the man just is completely willing to do whatever. Um, there is that sort of aspect of codependency. There is the example of, oh, I can't live without her. She's my entire world, or he's my entire world, and that person's life just basically revolves around the significant other. That is also a version of codependency where there is almost an obsessiveness associated with the other person, what that person does, what the person achieves. Their achievements are your achievements, and you feel that way. But the problem with Cheap Throwaway 69 here is that I think he's just having an issue sort of trying to separate what is codependency and what is actually being married to somebody. And you can step in any time here because you are the married person. But in my opinion, when you are married with somebody, you must share a lot of your life with them, and you have to be almost very intensely intimate with that person. You have to share your financials, you have to share your emotions, you have to share your philosophy of raising your kids. You have to be able to sort of, like the other person's family because you are now a part of their family. Same with them; they must be they must be able to exist with your family. Uh, all sorts of different things. Is that codependency? No, that is marriage. I think what he's having, or she's having, the issue with is that because he or she is somewhat vulnerable and opens up to a particular person, maybe might be mistaking codependency with just being very vulnerable and being very open, and sort of depending on a person too early in a relationship or too much in a relationship before something really gets serious. A real terrible codependent relationship will see a person basically somewhat lose their self in the other person, and sort of you'll be able to sort of notice this, and people will also be able to notice this, that their individuality almost has a tendency to associate with the other person. And and that's not healthy. People need to have their own personalities, their own likes and their own dislikes, and they need to be able to live with themselves and the other person, but still have the sort of mindset that if it were if their world's quote ends and they happen to break up, that they can live very healthily by themselves and not really feel like they need the other person very, very much. I mean, like, you get a lot of a lot of that, like people who end up being codependent and do end up losing the relationship, it can be very, very terrible for them as they struggle to sort of re-enter the single world because somebody they were very, very dependent on is no longer with them. So that's, I think, the real issue here. I think the the boundary in marriage, um, there is a lot of things that you do have to share with each other, but there is a lot of things that I think, as a married couple, you're absolutely able to be individually sort of free about. And I think you just sort of have to find that balance between the two. So, I mean, what do you think? As the married person here, I consider you the expert on being on being married. So, I mean, what do you think of the thoughts I just shared?
No, I think you're right. I think you're dead on. I think that a lot of these, um, the learning to have that balance and learning to rely on yourself and not to get lost in another person in a relationship at the point that your boundaries and your sense of self becomes sort of blurred out. That's something that is practiced and learned through the course of relationships. Um, from I don't know whenever people start these days, but
Hmm.
um, you got to think high school, college, and beyond until you're married. It is a process, and even in marriage, you're still having to draw lines. You're still having to redefine what your role is as a husband or wife, or domestic partner, however you guys are going to do it. And it is a living thing, so it's not like you're like, I got this thing knocked out and I'm ready to focus on something else. Like, this is something that is going to be developing over time. um, some of the questions that the user wrote uh, indicate that they might not have drawn these lines very clearly yet. They might not understand the boundaries between what is codependency and you know what is expected in a regular relationship, and then beyond that, a marriage. Like, I don't think, for me personally, the lines are that different. When I
Hmm.
was dating beforehand, I did not. I mean, okay, if we go way, way back in high school, I can definitely say my first relationship had ridiculous levels of codependency.
Okay.
Uh, I remember, I remember one night. I think we had broken up for like the fourth time or whatever, and I was going off to college, and for the first time, and she was telling me that I was abandoning her and leaving her, and I was driving down the highway, or not the highway, but just like the streets there, and like running red lights, just not caring if I got a car crash and if I was going to die. Just, it was so dramatic and so ridiculous. Um, and yeah, it was because I couldn't imagine my world without her in it. So that, yeah, there's major codependency example right there. But beyond that, like growing up a little bit, that stuff faded quickly. And if you look at some of these examples that the person wrote in, having kids and sharing responsibilities, bills, and friends, that's just normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a normal negotiation that you have with another person. Uh, it doesn't necessarily lead to codependency. So if there are issues there, you have to kind of tease them out yourself. And you have to say, okay, I can handle my own emotions. I can handle my own life things, right? No one else is putting on my clothes for me in the morning. I can make my food. I can, you know, schedule my social life, all these kind of things, which are just things you should be able to do on your own. And then maybe that's where you start. You start by looking in the mirror and saying, do I have my life together? Can I do all these things? And when I get in a relationship, do I start looking for someone else to do them for me?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, it's nice when somebody takes care of you. There's a difference between taking care of you and then absolutely depending on them to live your life. There there's a distinct example. So there was a great conversation that I had with my CFO today, and we were celebrating some promotions at work, and I saw him without his tie on. And we work at an entertainment company, so I asked him, "Is like, what even is the point of the tie? Nobody here wears one." And he said, "My wife picks out all my clothes," which sort of took me aback a little bit. But you know, he's a busy guy, so I sort of understand where he's coming from. He's like, I am terrible at picking out shirts. So my wife picks out the shirts, but she believes that I should always wear a tie because I'm a professional. So she matches ties to his shirts and actually hangs them up with the ties. And when he's packing to go visit our offices, which he does every 2 weeks, his wife will lay out the shirts and the ties that he thinks go together, and he packs up what he wants to wear and he goes. That's not a codependent relationship. That is a wife trying to be helpful to make sure that her CFO husband looks as clean and professional as possible. There is a difference, though, when you don't even know what to wear and you have to have your wife tell you you have to wear this particular shirt and these particular pants, or you're not going to be able to do what you need to do. That is unhealthy.
Right.
There are levels to it that you sort of have to understand, like, when you're actually doing all of that stuff, and like how much time do you need to spend together, for example. It's like in a codependent relationship, a person needs to be around you at all times. If you have the ability to basically go out and do your own things, that is very healthy even in a marriage. The example is probably going to be your example, as me and Tim spend a lot of time together, but Emily decides when she wants to come along and when she doesn't. You're so
Right. And
therefore it's
there's no
yeah,
issue there. Like
none.
there's
Hmm.
never a moment where I'm asking permission
Yes.
or she's feeling insecure because I'm going out. And if she goes out, I'm not feeling a moment of hesitation about any of it. It is it's negotiated that we are adults, we can handle ourselves, and
Hmm.
we trust each other. And so that's easy going.
Yeah, and then there are things that you would need to sort of understand. Like as you grow older and you have families and everything like that, it is very typical for guys and even women to go out on quote girls trips or boys trips. Uh, a healthy reaction to that would be like, who are you going with and what are you going to be doing? And then saying, okay, let's go. Or, you look at it as a family. Can you go on this trip? Do you have any plans with your family or your significant other during that weekend? And if you can go, you should go. Like, and it goes the other way. Like, but if the reaction to something as simple like that would be, it's like I don't really think you should be going. You need to sort of figure out like what's the reasoning behind it. Why is your significant other upset about it? Is it jealousy? Is it because she doesn't like your or he doesn't like your friends? I mean, is it just something? Is it a trust issue? Those are things that I think can sort of you can sort of step back and sort of take a look at your relationship and see if is there any manipulation involved? Is there anything like that that's going on that is you know, sort of traits of some sort of an inherent sort of codependency that the person needs to have you around at all times. They don't want you going out or something like that. That is very unhealthy. And as a person who has never experienced that, I think for me it would be easy to sort of pick out. But in the very beginning, it might be uh, sort of hidden in, oh, I don't really feel like it. Please stay with me tonight. I don't really want you to go. And if it happens once or twice, that happens. People don't want to go out. People want you to stay with them. It's great. But if it happens all the time and it starts to put a crimp into your life, or like it starts to stop you from doing normal activities because you have to be with them because they can't be alone, or they get upset at you and angry about it, then that is a problem. So yeah.
True.
Hmm.
And I don't think that Hollywood has served the population uh, in that way. I think that they portray relationships as these hyper romantic things where codependency somehow equals romantic. I can't live without you. You complete me. We're soulmates. And if this doesn't work, I'm never going to love anyone again. Like these kind of ridiculous romantic ideals are pushed on us from Disney through every romantic love story. And while the idea of soulmates is not something I just toss off, I would say that you really have to be careful with it
Hmm.
because it's very easy to slip into something dysfunctional, and in this case, codependent. You know, if you cannot define yourself without this other person, you're starting to lose it.
So
That's what I think.
yeah. So in summation, sharing things with your significant other is super important. I actually think it is one of the more important things that you do in a relationship, but you do need to be careful over what the difference between sharing uh, for love and understanding and sharing and having them be really, really dependent on you for their emotional sort of needs. And that is the real difference. Is like, you know, you are supposed to share your bills. You are supposed to talk about your emotions. You are supposed to do all of these things with your with your significant other when you are married. But you need to have your own ability to be able to be separate. And when that stops happening, then you sort of have to take a look at the relationship. So, yeah, so it's very interesting. I mean, this is actually, I think, a very, very good question because I think a lot of people um, sort of misinterpret what codependency and sharing in a marriage is, and I think it is sort of helpful to clear some of that stuff up because people aren't taught really like how to be married. Like people go into
Right.
marriages and like they're just expected to just go, and how is that supposed to be helpful to anyone? It's like
Right.
no, like
There's no prep for that.
yeah, there's no
Yeah.
idea
No.
how a marriage should be.
Right.
Yeah,
And a lot of people in relationships, uh, and before they're married, they have the sense that there's just this huge leap between your relationship and your marriage. But if you've been in a relationship for a number of years with someone and you're going to go into a marriage, it's not like signing a piece of paper or putting a ring on the finger and saying a couple words. I mean that is making a vow to someone, and that is legally binding yourself, or binding yourself under God. But it doesn't mean that you emotionally have changed at all. You can be the same irresponsible person you were in relationships, or you can be the same devoted, loving partner going into the marriage.
yeah,
So, this whole concept of codependency, it occurs before, after. It's a lifelong kind of thing, and the best thing to do would be to get through with it early on in your years, so that you can then have a more healthy adult relationship, and especially if you're going into marriage.
exactly. Understand the warning signs even on your personal side because you could be the one that is the codependent one. And understand that there are certain aspects that are unhealthy. So cheap throwaway 69. Hopefully, we've helped you with a little bit of that. We will be posting it onto your Reddit thread eventually, so that you will be able to see this answer in this video. And if you're just joining us, it is 10:24. We just went through our first topic here on TwitchLine. We were discussing whether marriage was inherently codependent, and we wanted to sort of highlight the difference of what actual codependency is and what being in a marriage is like. So that you don't sort of mistake the two, I think. So I think we're on to our next topic here that we're going to be able to discuss. And, the thing about it is the next topic I think will affect a lot of people because,
For sure.
yeah, this is a problem that I think that most couples will have no matter the age range. And I think when you're younger, it definitely is a real issue. The problem is that the older you get, it might be an issue that you're sort of forced to deal with. And that issue is she can't handle that I'm friends with my ex. Now, this is basically a rabbit hole. Now, when you're
Yeah,
so when you're
dangerous.
talking about this, it's so dangerous because when you're talking about exes, everybody has an opinion on one. So, my ex was actually really good and I was the one who messed it up. Or my ex is the devil and you will never, ever, and nobody should ever, ever, ever be friends with her or him and he is a terrible, terrible person. Well, this person is trying to look for help with regards to it. So we're going to be visiting Mr. Jacob says 500, and we're going to see what his issue is. So as we go into Reddit, his topic was my 27M, girlfriend, 27F, of 1 year. Can't handle that I'm friends with my ex, 26F. Oh boy. I broke up with my ex, let's call her Daisy, a bit over 2 years ago due to the fact that we, neither of us, didn't see a future with our relationship that lasted almost 4 years. We had 2 weeks or so of total radio silence after the breakup, and afterwards we stayed friends. Saw each other on kind of a regular basis and chatted pretty much every day. I have only platonic feelings towards her, and to my knowledge, this is mutual. Roughly 1 year after our breakup, I met this other girl, let's call her Jane, and pretty much instantly we started doing everything together and moved in quite quickly. The only problem is our relationship is Daisy. Initially, I tried to get them to meet each other at least once, and when one agreed to it, the other one backed away. At this point, Jane refuses to see, speak, or in any way consider Daisy, and claims that she hates her and doesn't even want to spend any energy on her. I believe that she hates more the image that she has gathered around her and the fact that we have history together. Once Jane was saying that she feels like the third wheel with Daisy, but now it's more like she just can't tolerate her at all. Wow. Nowadays, Jane gives me cold shoulder and the silent treatment for some time if I would go to see Daisy, and partly because of this, we don't meet that often. We still do chat because we have similar interests. We don't share with Jane, but I do enjoy her company. I've tried to make Jane understand that there is nothing to be jealous about. I have offered to show all of my texts with Daisy, and I propose that we would go to a couples counseling for this, but she says that there's no need for neither. I think if she would just meet her, the situation would get easier. I do understand the situation is tricky. I wouldn't like it if I were in Jane's position, but I would really like to make it work. I'm afraid that soon Jane throws an ultimatum. While I know she knows I would choose her, I don't want to end my relationship with Daisy. Is there anything I could do? And then he puts in the TLDR at the bottom. My girlfriend can't tolerate the fact that I'm still best friends with my ex, and despite all of my efforts, I'm not able to alleviate the situation, and I don't know what else to do. Mr. Jacob says, you are in a position that a lot of men have been in before. You are not alone in this. Women too, because both men and women can be in the position of Jane here, and there is a bit of awkwardness because let's take Jane's perspective in all of this. I don't know anything about Jane. I don't know what her emotions are like, or how she is as a person. But the first thing I would say is, if you found out that you moved in with somebody, but you realized that the ex has been around the entire time, and you didn't really mention it, or sort of just, didn't really make it of a big deal, you sort of seem very suspicious of it all. A lot of people will react to the fact that an ex is still around with a little bit of apprehension, a little bit of suspicion, a little bit of, why is he or she still here? Jane, I figure, is in love with you and loves you, but it's just something that some people just can't handle. And everybody is different. I mean, we have a friend group where exes have dropped out of our group of friends because they were just unable to sort of handle seeing that other person all the time. We've had friends marry each other, and the ex was the best friend at their wedding. So it was like the best the groom. Was he was the what is the version of a woman's? It's the matron of honor. Was the matron of honor for the bride at the wedding, because even though they dated each other, they actually, the groom and the ex ended up being very, very good friends and was at their wedding. We've had exes that broke up with each other. There was animosity, like there always is at the end of a relationship, but after 10, 15 years, everybody's cordial about it. Even the person that they're currently dating or married to is very cordial about it. A lot of it sometimes takes time. A lot of it sometimes doesn't take time, because it really does. It really just depends on the individual person. And in this particular case, though, ultimatums are not necessarily the greatest in the world. We had a previous discussion with regards to when significant others give ultimatums to their significant other, and that one was about video game collecting. So that was one of those things in which it's like, is it right for a partner to give an ultimatum to another part to their significant other? I believe personally that's wrong. I think making you choose, but you have to understand the situation that your current girlfriend is in. And Tim, everybody's different on this relationship. Some people believe that you have to sort of end it. Some people don't. Some people think that you still can be cordial with your friends. Some people end up being best friends with their exes, but there's no sexual thing. And in this particular case, that's
Well,
what happened.
I'll tell you this. I, those were some lovely stories that you just told about people making it work and things
Mm-hmm.
happening great in the end. But
Mm-hmm.
my experience says otherwise. And, I'm sure I have just as many people nodding their heads when I'm about to tell my stories here.
Yeah.
Sometimes exes are exes for a good reason. They need to disappear into the mist and then, move on with your lives. I think that our original poster here from Reddit uh, has to deal with the fact that while he's cool with his ex being his friend in his life, he needs to respect the woman that he's brought into his life and is making his first and foremost,
Mm-hmm.
and say, if this makes you uncomfortable, perhaps I should distance myself from my ex, because she's coming in and she sees their connection. She sees that they have history. We don't know whether she's super secure or if she has insecurities. We don't know if this dude's cheated before or if he hasn't. Like, there's a lot of unknowns here.
Mm-hmm.
And what without knowing, you can only go off of, what you feel. And if you feel these uncomfortable, jealous kind of feelings, chances are you're going to be pushing for, kick her to the curb, be with me. It doesn't seem like he's had any ultimatums. It seems like he's got two people that are uncomfortable with the idea of knowing each other, and he's sort of stuck in the middle. And yeah, I mean that's an issue. It's a common issue.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know for me personally, uh, I have no contact with any of my exes at this point, and it's generally been the right choice. I mean, I can't imagine maintaining contact with someone that. I mean, and it kind of depends how you broke up. But for me, when they ended, they were done.
Mm-hmm.
And the only time that I had any kind of like long-term friendship beyond, there was one that was we were friends for years before and then dated 6 years after that. So we had a decade of knowing each other. But when it was time for me to move on in my next relationship, which actually led to the marriage that I'm in now, I had to put distance there because it was uncomfortable for my, you know, present wife.
Yeah.
And I had to say to myself, what is more important? Me having kind of like the remnants of a friendship, trying to piece something back together, or is it better to keep, my wife at ease and happy home, just clean cut? And that's what worked out for me in the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I gotta respect this guy because his initial approach was really good. He's like, I'm gonna try to get them to know each other, and that would perhaps dispel some kind of tension between them. That maybe if he could get his ex girlfriend and his present girlfriend in the same room, that uh, they would realize, hey, this is not actually an issue. I mean, it's kind of a pipe dream, and it's possible, but it's also
One
possible it's gonna blow up.
one can hope, right? And the thing
Yeah.
about it is that he said this was after a year. So let's take a look at the time frame real quick. That is a big factor. So when you really look at this, this was a year after they were in a 4-year relationship. So if you're trying to get your ex to meet your current girlfriend, if this ex was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that, and you've been friends ever since for 5 years, and you meet somebody, it goes really well, you sort of end up moving in, and she knows about you, but that it's been 5 years since you've been in a relationship. I think some people would take that even a little easier because it's been such a long time. This relationship ended about a year before they met and started, dating. A year is not a long time in relationship world in this particular case. I mean, I can understand Jane's point. Is like, I really would be really uncomfortable with this, but there are other people who would be uncomfortable with this. So let's actually go to a graphic here that we have, and this was a poll from the AP and WTV of 1,241 adults that was featured in the Dallas Morning News in January 2016. A lot of people would have agreed with Jane that cutting contact with an ex is very helpful in getting over a breakup, and it's not worth staying friends. A lot of people are with you, Tim. A lot of people just say, cut it clean. There's no point in being friends with with another person and trying to sort of make it work, because you want to get over it, you want to sort of do stuff, but unfortunately it's not what actually people do, because the same people that are polled, over 50% who have experienced their said breakup, half of them stay friends with their ex, because in this particular case, Jacob, they broke up because they didn't see a future with each other. They didn't actually break up because of any animosity. Is they took a look at their relationship and they're like, we're not going to get married, we're not going to move forward as adults. That is a very adult decision. It is not, you're not breaking up with another person because the other person cheated on you or was emotionally unavailable or just treated you like garbage or even abused you in any way. This was more of a, we need to figure out where we want to be and how we want to grow up. And this is a very sort of rational breakup. And is referenced by that, and it happens more often than not if half of the people are actually staying friends with their ex. The problematic version of that is that 40% of those people actually got back together with their ex at some point later on, which,
Yep.
yep, which is why Jane has a right to be angry. And it is that threat of going back to the person, with regards to, like, past feelings can be rekindled, something ends up happening, and, like, oh my god, all of a sudden my boyfriend has left me to go back to her ex-girlfriend, and that sucks, and you feel like you should have been able to prevent that by not allowing him or her to see her. And then this was an odd statistic that was also related in the poll. 13% of those people ended up staying living together because they were in a relationship where they shared an apartment or something like that, and even went on vacation with their ex in some way. Um, Very
That's kind of
interesting.
weird. Yeah, I
That
don't know
is
what to do
very.
with that.
I'm not exactly sure how that is experienced, but the thing what this doesn't actually take into account is that, there are different types of relationships. They're mid upper 20s in this particular case. Looks like they don't have any kids, and that is I guess a sort of positive in that sense. But if you were saying that Jacob was 35 and Daisy was 35 and they shared a son or a daughter together, this argument is completely different,
Right, it's a
because
different story.
it's a different story. Because no matter what happens when a child is involved, that ex is the mother of your son or daughter, and it is impossible to not be able to talk to that other person, because there is a shared responsibility of raising a child. But in this particular case, it didn't happen, so that's not the case here. But when you throw in a different type of relationship, then that argument of not seeing the other person completely throws out the window. So circumstances are very, very necessary to understand what is involved here. But you know, if you're
I
interested,
have a
if you're interested in this
with the,
story, we'll link that here in the Twitch chat so that you guys can
you
read
gotta
about it more.
wonder though, like, uh, what how do they define friendship there? Like, there's a big difference between like, oh, is she still on your Facebook as your friend there?
Hmm.
And she comes over 4 times a week to, drink and play board games with you. Like there are different levels of friendship. So when they say you're still friends and how many of them actually cut ties, I think there's some information lost that could be useful because I don't think that there's a big threat from a person that you talk to twice a year but and still call them your friend.
Hmm.
But there's a person who gets drunk and stays over because it's just so comfortable. And that's the way it used to be, and there may be a larger threat there.
Yeah.
So you got to consider these kind of like in between things.
Yeah.
Uh, I wonder though, if would our user be so cool with this if it were kind of switched around and Jane's boyfriend ex-boyfriend was her great friend and he was always, coming around and hanging out, like, would he be so understanding in that way?
You know,
Or is it just because he's the one with something to gain here?
that's the thing, right? Like, put yourself in Jane's shoes, and it's Jane's ex-boyfriend that's been hanging out. He's a great guy, sort of hangs out all the time, but it is a main focus of tension on his end then. And how would he feel if they had those feelings? I don't know. See, that's the thing that we're missing is a lot of this stuff is like, we're taking a look at this one perspective, but I gotta believe, that would provide a lot of the insight as to if Jacob is just one of those guys that is just super friendly and would be willing to sort of hang out with Jane's ex-boyfriend if they broke up a year ago,
I
because
bet if
yeah.
Jane's ex-boyfriend had a bigger penis than he did, it would not be cool.
well,
Just saying.
Well, the conversations that like, two people have in bed, could go that way. It starts arguments. Is like, you never want to ask a question you don't want the answer to. That is something that you learn in business and in law. And that's the first thing. Never ask a question you never want the answer to. And asking about previous sexual partners to your current, boyfriend or girlfriend, if you don't want to know, don't ask the question.
Yeah.
so,
So I actually thought of a couple like questions that people could ask themselves if they're in this kind of situation.
I'm, I'm,
This is such like a multifaceted issue,
yeah, yeah.
and I think that there are just a number of factors that people should consider. So if this is your situation, I think it is really important for you, your friend, your significant other, to say like, are these feelings really gone for both people? Are you hanging on to a friendship while they're trying to hang on to a possibility you guys will get back together? Because that's not really fair, and you should let it go. Are 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 you still Are you still pining for that ex while you're with someone new? Because that's also not fair to basically everyone involved. So that's a big one. Is your previous relationship more important to you than your present one? Is that friend going to trump your current boyfriend or girlfriend, because that's not fair to that person, to the new one?
Hmm.
Do either of you have history of cheating, lying, promoting jealousy? Because that just sounds like just a nasty situation brewing.
Yeah.
If you've got that in the background, chances are things are going to get ugly.
Mhm.
I think it's important to ask yourself how exactly you spend your time and how you communicate with your ex. Like, if it's always in a group situation, you guys don't ever physically touch, like if there are this sort of like lines that are drawn and the person that you're with can see that, they might be more comfortable with it. But if you have inside jokes that are just so funny, oh my god, and they're not part of it, get your
Yeah.
get yourself ready for that fight that night because it's
Yeah.
coming. And if you go out on a one-on-one dinner with the person, go to the movies and things like that that are typically romantic things, then you might be getting ready for some trouble there too.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then one of the big ones, do you have other friends that are of the opposite sex? Like, are you the guy that has 14 guy friends and just one female friend who happens to be your ex? Because like you got to start wondering like why is that one so special? And that's what they're going to be thinking too. So I just think that a few of those things are things you should ask yourself, and then if you can cleanly come through those questions, you have a better chance.
Yeah, and unfortunately, for Jacob here, he's trying to sort of, you know, a lot of times on Reddit, people try to sort of justify their actions, and they say it's like, I didn't do anything wrong here. I'm just trying to get her to be friends with my current ex-girlfriend who is one of my best friends now. I mean, am I the asshole here? If you're not taking Jane's sort of emotions and feelings involved, then sorta, because you know what? When you are in a relationship with a person, you have to make them priority in certain situations. And sometimes, like this, it's like, you do have to choose between a friend that you've had for a while and the current person that you are dating. Yeah, that's exactly right. Homie wants to have his cake and eat it too. And it's like, yeah, that's the problem, right? Like, we've seen this even in our personal lives where, um, like people just want to have the ability to have this sort of freedom and not sort of worry. It's like, oh, she's just an ex-girlfriend, but there's no emotions there, not at all. And then you're right, they start joking with each other and ha ha. How does that make the other person feel? You don't you don't want to be on the other side of that, because you're the one then are being excluded from conversations, little things that people do, that like experiences that they only have experienced together, that you have no connection to. I mean, it sucks. And it's like, and you sort of have to understand what Jane's going through. So my final advice to Jacob is that if Jane is uncomfortable with it for the entire time, like, don't push it on her. The last thing you want to do is force it, because that could spell the end of your relationship with her. If you find her super super important, then you have to respect her wishes on this, because to each his own. Everyone is different in this particular section. In this situation, there is no right, there is no wrong. There are just the consideration of the feelings of your partner.
Yep. Just
Yeah.
save yourself the pain. Just just let it go.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
just projecting my personal feelings here. Whatever.
Exactly. And if that means
Um,
sitting down with Daisy and saying to Daisy, look, Jane is having serious issues um, with me hanging out with you. And you definitely don't do it over like a restaurant conversation. You do it in a group environment where there are other people around, other friends, other male friends, other female friends, so that you are not explaining the situation with just you and her in a situation that could be misconstrued. But that conversation needs to be had with Daisy to basically tell her, it's like, look, I'm going to have to put you on the back burner if Jane continues to be uncomfortable with it. And maybe all Jane needs is a little bit of reassurance. Maybe if they get married, let's say the relationship goes really well, except for this, and Jane really, really
mm,
loves Jacob, and they end up getting married, and now that they're married and she's okay with it, then maybe it's just a situational thing.
mm,
Who
I
knows?
don't know, man.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
could be.
know.
Yeah, that could be a thing. I mean, you don't know.
Wear
And
a body camera, man. Wear a body camera. That way it's all documented. You don't have an issue. Let's let's go ahead and segue into our next topic here.
yeah.
Um, also, if you're new to our to the Twitch line here, and you're interested in hearing us talk about relationships, love, life, and we pull from Reddit. We also take email requests for questions. You could type a question into the chat here. But if you go ahead and give us a follow and then come back, we usually do Wednesday nights, sometimes Sunday nights, and we cover a broad range of topics. So glad to have you here. Glad you're with us. And as we go forward here, we're going to be talking about our next and third topic tonight, which is from the Reddit relationship advice. The user is fairytale12x, and I believe, yes, it is a female. She's
Hmm.
saying, the question is, how do I stop seeking male validation? Interesting. So let's dig in.
Hmm.
She says, I'm 21 and I've been with my boyfriend for 2.5 years. We are serious and love each other. My issue is I still care whether men find me attractive or not. Like if I'm on a night out and a guy approaches me, I get a good feeling, even though I obviously tell him I'm taken. I care about whether my boyfriend's friends think I'm attractive or not. My partner constantly tells me I'm attractive, and I care a lot about his opinion, but I still seek validation. I think it's because I used to be fat and the ugly duckling at school. And then I lost the weight, and everyone talks about my transformation, but I still feel very insecure. I also have a lot going for me personality wise, so I don't know why I care so much about whether people find me good looking or not. How do I get past these things? I know if my boyfriend constantly wanted other women to find him hot, I'd be annoyed at him, so I need to change. Oh, yeah,
Wow.
there you go. Yeah, that's
Yes, some
I mean, she's being
self-reflection.
honest. Right, she's being honest with herself though,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. Not only does she recognize that, but that she's like trying to think, how does this make her boyfriend feel, and how is this actually negatively affecting herself? Because most people would just soak it up. They'd say, "Oh, I'm getting attention. This is amazing, and it's not hurting anyone. So let's keep it going." And then the drama comes later, sure. But in this case, um, and this is just a male perspective. This is just my perspective. This is, Z and I.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it would actually be interesting to hear a female perspective on this, especially someone has experience with it. Um, so if anyone out there would like to comment, please, you're welcome. But basically, we all want to be wanted, right? We like to be noticed. We like to be appreciated. We like to be desired. And there's nothing really wrong with that. And it actually never goes away completely. At no point in your life do you want to become invisible and just fade away. Like you want to be recognized and appreciated. And it's nice to hear someone give you a compliment and tell you that they think you're hot or whatever. But the problems actually arise when it moves from just a kind of appreciation to kind of a need or an obsession,
Mm.
right? And some people
Yes.
push too far outside of that range, and they actually do things that they are ashamed of later, or that cause problems in their relationship just to get that attention. They know while it's happening, this is not good for me. This is not good for the person that I'm with, but they continue down that road because the end result is that tasty uh, the feeling of validation that, oh, I still got it. I can still turn heads. I can still get numbers. Even if they're not getting it, someone's asking them for their number. That's like, hey, that counts. You know, so it's yeah, it's a tricky thing to deal with, especially if you consider her background, right? And
Mm-hmm.
you have any thoughts coming to your head right now about this thing before we get into that?
Well, the thing about it is it's all motivation, right? It's like, why do you want the constant comments? And personally, I am one of those people that I love it when somebody tells me I've done a good job. I I I love it at work when somebody's like, "Good job, Z. Great job there, done, Z. It's fantastic." It's a really nice boost to the ego. You're right though. Like if that sort of validation sort of starts to motivate your life and affects the way you live, then we have a problem. Because while it's nice to get compliments and people saying nice things about you, you shouldn't. It's not something that you should theoretically live for. Like the idea, I think here, there must have been some events in her past life before she became who she is now that really must have affected her emotionally. I think. I mean, she is literally leaving, basically describing what she was like at a younger age. She was an ugly duckling who was overweight, and kids can be cruel, can be
Yes,
very,
they are.
very cruel to people, especially when they are not that stereotypical, like, kid that is beautiful and everybody wants to be around. And it might be that she just never got a lot of that when she was younger, and I feel really bad for that. And because now she has grown up into becoming a little into sort of personal Cinderella of her own. That quote, she uses the term sort of transformation, um, sort of in a very sort of fairy tale way. Because in her name is Fairy Tale 12X. I mean, I think, sees
There's a
that
theme here.
it is a theme here. So it's like sort of that whole, like, I have become and I have achieved, but she still craves it, even though she is that. And I think it's just one of those things that after a while, like, I think she might want to go without some comments after a while. And is she really comfortable in her own skin? And that's really, I think, the question that she really asked for. Like, did she change into this stereotypical attractive person for her, or did she change because she wanted to conform to what society standards are? And that could be something that's sort of eating away at her. Because you sort of look at it as to when somebody goes and loses weight and changes who they are about themselves, they want to better themselves. They want to they don't want to do it for somebody else, they want to do it for them. And as I said in the very beginning, it all boils down to motivation. So what was her motivation when she was, quote, the fat ugly duckling, and like lost the weight and became this stereotypical fairy tale princess now. Um, what was her main reasoning for it? And you know, if it wasn't for herself, then it might be theoretically something that was unhealthy. So, and even
Right.
though she
People,
is she's in quote in a better place, it might be emotionally unhealthy for her.
right.
So,
People,
hmm
their insides don't change as fast as their outsides.
hmm
So these kind of things, like when you're young and you are developing your sense of self, who you are, who you'll be in this world, and people attack that, you can carry scars with you your entire life. You can go from this kind of awkward young person who turns into, the beautiful, successful person later on in life, but you still carry that person inside you that was damaged early on. You can overcome it sometimes on your own, sometimes with therapy, but a lot of people end up in their later lives fighting the same battles they fought when they were, a kid,
hmm
dealing with those same insecurities and doubts about themselves. So even though she's lost weight, even though she's transformed, as she says, she very likely has a sense of herself, her worth, and it is probably influenced by that old self.
hmm
So any affirmation she gets now, any attention she gets, any validation she gets from men is like a way of saying, "Hey, I'm not that person I once was, and I'm now something better. I'm something to be desired. I'm something to be appreciated." And it's interesting that how this happens a lot actually in relationships. You don't end up valuing your partner's opinions about you as much as a stranger's.
yeah,
When it comes to like how attractive you are, like you're like, oh, you love me, so you have to say those nice things, or we've been together for so long, you wouldn't even recognize this about me anymore. But if some random person on the street says, "Hey, you have, you know, beautiful hair" or something, that somehow carries more weight. It's strange. I don't get it, but there
no,
it is.
it is absolutely true, and you see it in family dynamics all the time when it comes to like children trying to get validation for things that they have done, and they get like other people saying like what, like you always say that your mom and your dad are always proud of you, but when they try to do something and they get sort of praised by other people, like an uncle or something like that, and it makes them feel like, oh wow, that really it happens in that particular type of situation too. So it's like, you know, it's very interesting, and I think you sort of have to go back, and I think it, I don't want to say it, but it's almost as if sometimes compliments and this type of validation is like a drug. Is like you live on it, you
Sure.
sort of
Yeah.
crave it, and sometimes the only way to go and get off of this quote drug is to go cold turkey, and just sometimes go out there and wear sweatpants and don't doll yourself up, and sort of find ways that society would never ever say it's like, oh, you're looking good tonight, when you're actually just wearing your hair's not really done right, and you're wearing like a dirty sweatshirt or something like that, and just sort of live that way, and sort of live without the compliments, live without without somebody having to say and feeling good when somebody says you look good and something like that, and you sort of cut yourself off from it for a small period of time and see how you feel, because if you don't feel good without it, then you might need to start taking a look at yourself internally and saying it's like, okay, I need to fix this, because you really, compliments are nice, but it's not something that you should be striving for. And especially if your partner thinks that you're attractive and he tells you that all the time, he must also notice that you sort of living on the compliments, and it's an easy way for him to possibly sort of skate on by, and just maybe sometimes like things like that will sort of hide things from the other person, like because you live for these compliments all the time, you get them all the time, uh, you might be overlooking something that might not necessarily be good about your significant other. So
Yeah.
like there are other
Agree.
things that can lead to issues here that I think you sort of need to start weaning yourself off of the compliments. Once in a while is nice. hell, like I love compliments too. When a girl says, "Hey, you're looking good," see, it's like, hell yeah, I am. I know I am. It's great.
Well, not everybody has your confidence, so
Well, it's not that, but like when
yeah,
you go out there and you try to make an effort and you do get that one compliment, it feels really really good.
truth.
But
Yeah,
you shouldn't go out there and try all the time and live for it because it's unhealthy. So,
right. Actually, that there's value in asking yourself that question too. Like, what feelings do you have when you don't get that validation?
hmm
Like, do you start craving it more? Do you start like do you feel insecure to the point that you need to get validated in whatever way? Do you start taking actions you wouldn't normally take? Like that indicates a problem. And like also ask yourself, does getting positive attention from same-sex friends uh or people that you know,
hmm
does that give you that same feeling, or does it have to be the stranger that owes you nothing? And is that going to be your only validation point?
that's actually a
And
valid question because it's one of those things when your friends are always going to be nice to you, but if that's not enough, then what's the pull on the strangers? It's
yeah,
like yeah.
and also, is your sense of self-worth and desirability tied into these experiences? Like, if you go out with your girlfriends and or in the whatever guy friends, whatever, you go out with your people, and you don't get that kind of attention, do you start feeling uncomfortable? Or if you see one of your friends getting the attention and you didn't get it, do you start feeling uncomfortable? Because here's where you get a sense that, hey, maybe I have some insecurity issues and I need to dig a little deeper and find out, what's actually going on inside me here. Because to overcome these issues, you have to be real with yourself. You have to say, this is what I am, this is what I'm not. Uh, I had this kind of trauma in my past, and this is how it's showing up now. And you need to say, you start focusing on like where your true value lies, not just what someone tells you I am, but what I know to be true.
Well,
And just and recognizing the attention for what it is. Like if a dude is hollering at you at the club, yeah, you're pretty. And so is the next girl he's trying to sleep with, and so is the next girl he's trying to sleep with. Like, don't that guy's comment is not worth that much.
hmm but the thing about it is fairy tale 12X here, um, has a, sort of like with this post sort of recognized that she sort of has a problem, and that's always been the first step. So I think
Yep.
she's on her way to sort of like helping herself. And I think maybe this Reddit post is just a little push that she needs to sort of go forward because I think this has actually been one of those things that is been sort of commented on a lot. It's one of the higher commented like sort of posts that we've seen with regards to it. And the thing about it is like even in programs where people say is like recognizing the problem is the first step to knowing that you have a problem. And in
True.
this particular case, she recognizes that she has an issue. So hopefully, like, she will sort of find ways to sort of live with herself a little better, not necessarily sort of crave those praises for others, but slowly but surely sort of wean yourself off of it. You don't have to go cold turkey without it, but it's just one of those things. Appreciate who your partner is, appreciate your partner's comments. All the comments that he is sort of saying to you, and love him for all the comments that he appreciates. And, other people might have, other motivations for saying the things that you're saying. And, just be happy when you get them and be happy when you don't get them. And find a way to do so because that will be a healthier you in the end. So,
Very good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go on, and hopefully, Fairy Tale 12X, that whole like Snow White Cinderella thing, uh, she sort of like sort of was going with a little theme there. Ugly duckling transformation, Fairy Tale 12X. A lot of very common themes throughout her posting. So it's very cool to see when people sort of go through all of that. So we'll go to our last topic here. Um, which is an interesting one because Perfectly Imperfect 8 is a perfect submission for this. And the question that Perfectly Imperfect 8 is asking himself is how to be desirable without being an asshole. And normally, when you are desirable, you are not an asshole. So I'm not exactly sure where it says in the book that you have to be an asshole to be desirable, but let's see what he says. And the girl, perfectly imperfect 8, has been I was seeing recently broke it off. Stated multiple times, she always goes after the assholes, and that tends to be a theme with girls I see. I mean, she was on and off with a huge asshole for 6 years. I'm in my mid 20s, and for some reason, they all seem to love the assholes. That's just not me, though, and I have no desire to be an asshole to females. So my question is, how do I develop the same allure of an asshole, but without being an asshole? What is it captivate? What is it? What it is? It should be what is it that is captivating to females? The thing about it is, and it's one of those things that I've lived with all of my life, is that, oh my God, Z, you would be the perfect husband, but I just don't want to date you right now. I think, oh, you would be so great. You cook really well. You really really understand people, but I just don't see myself in you. And then they go date a guy who you think is a complete dick. Um, there are lots of times when it seems like that woman that you want or the man that you want just ends up with somebody that is a complete opposite of what you think a perfect person should be, and there is just completely out of your control. Some people are attracted to that sort of danger and drama and instability that that type of relationship can sort of create. And I would look at it as unhealthy. I would also look at it as, psst, that person has no idea what they want right now, because this particular person, I see it, is terrible, is rude, is not necessarily the greatest human being in the world, yet this particular person wants to be with them. And it could be as simple as they are good in bed. It could be as simple as she likes or he likes drama in the relationship and likes fighting with a significant other because it provides him a or her a lively output for their feelings. It is not a perfect situation, and unfortunately, in the 20s, you see it a lot more in the early 20s, late teens. Colleges are a perfect example of this, where you feel like these frat guys are ending up with these great girls who then they treat like crap, or you think that they treat like crap, because oh my God, he's so douchey. What the hell's going on? Could be that it's a facade, and when they're together and alone, he's a really nice guy, and you just don't see it. But that whole stereotypical, like, that guy or that girl is a complete ass, is something that a lot of quote nice guys have had to live with all of their life, and it can be frustrating, but it's one of those things that's part of dating that has to happen. You sort of have to go out there, and hopefully you find somebody that will like you for your personality. Because this sort of being rejected for an asshole is that feeling of, oh, my personality is not good enough for you. It's uh, it is I'm a nice person, or at least I think I'm a nice person by the standards that I live by. Yet you are leaving me for a person that is uh, by which I really do not disagree with how they live or what they do or how they act. Is like, it is very very demoralizing, and I can definitely understand that. Tim, what is your take on this?
Oh man, for as people in my world have been dating, I guess we started in our teens.
Hmm?
From the very beginning, it was it was said that the asshole gets the girl, that the super cocky, confident guy doesn't give a shit about anything, gets kind of selfish,
Hmm.
will get the attention of the girls, and like that's something. sometimes people say to themselves to feel better about them not getting the girl. It's sort of a kind of like a nice guy syndrome where you're like, "Hey, I'm so great," but they just don't see me. There's just a lot of that stuff that goes on. But I think what we really are looking at here is a difference between confidence and arrogance. And, you know, being confident doesn't necessarily have to come with all of those bad boy features,
Hmm.
whereas being arrogant generally does. Um, Having that bloated sense of self sometimes for certain personalities can get positive attention. And, uh, and sometimes it's just a show. Sometimes it's not genuine, but yet it still works. And so guys will go out and they'll peacock and they'll push another guy around, or they'll show that they're the alpha, and that gets positive attention from a certain personality type of a girl. And like there's the counter side of this whole thing, which is like I think there was some book written like why men marry bitches or love bitches, something like that, something stupid like that. But basically, it's like there's a certain personality type who is perceived to be very confident and makes makes it seem like they don't want you or need you, and that suddenly somehow makes them more attractive and more desirable. And people who have learned to manipulate that can can get a lot of attention. But what I would say is a lot of times these people are good at getting someone inexperienced or who have been treated poorly before and are just sort of used to that. Uh, they don't necessarily get uh, they don't end up in very high quality relationships that last a very long time. There's usually
Hmm.
a lot of drama involved. There's usually a lot of issues involved because those personality types are corrosive to a healthy relationship.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think this is just a problem of youth and experience either. I think this does carry on into adult years for some people. Some people are constantly going from one bad boy or bitch to the next uh, because they crave some element of that interaction. They need to be feeling that kind of drama to feel like that's love, or like without all that, it's not it's not exciting enough, and that's an issue. And I think people who moan or bemoan this kind of dynamic should actually be happy because you generally don't want a person who requires a lot of drama to maintain a relationship. You don't want to be connected to someone who needs to be abused to feel like they're in a good relationship. So, like I don't see there's a much of a loss there for them. And that perhaps if they are willing to find someone who's more in line with their personality type, then they'll be successful. What do you think?
Well, and that's it, right? Like to a point, it's almost inexperience on perfectly imperfect's part. It's like you don't want to be with a person who wants that type of personality because it just reflects poorly on them. Honestly, if you truly are a quote nice guy, you will allow her to go on her merry way. Yeah, I mean, like, so she might be in your mind a crazy attractive girl. This is the person that I think is going to be the mother of my children, and then she goes away and leaves you for some crazy guy. And it's like, yeah, that's going to suck, but in the end, possibly it's going to be better for you because that person was not desirable of your personality, of what you do, how you feel as a person, how you express yourself, how you act. You don't want to be with a person who doesn't sort of like those things about you. You want to be with a person who likes you for who you are. And it makes it so much easier to deal with a person who does love you for who you are and to be able to sort of be compatible for the long term. The thing about a personality type that can quote excite another person is that it will burn really bright and really hot for a really short time, and then when all of that goes away, what are you left with? And if it's and they most times either one or both will realize that this is not for me, and I was actually more addicted to that sort of excitement than I was to this actual person. And there have been instances where a significant other has left a partner, and when they want to go back to the person that was nice, that person though found another person, and they are SOL because now that person found a person who was that really loves them for their personality, and it could be regret on the partner that broke it off's part. Like, oh my god, what did I do? It's like, you can look at it that way, and it's like, sucks for them, because if you're actually a good person and you found another good person in the world, that's great. That's fantastic. And in their end, it was their mistake. And you shouldn't look at it as a fault of yours. Honestly, you should look at it as a sort of warning to other people as to what you should be like looking for in a relationship. But I want to make this point. There, the confidence versus arrogance thing is just one of those things that men struggle with. Women do like men who are confident, because a lot of times in the animal kingdom, especially, confidence exudes uh, motivation. They know what they want. They sort of go out and get it, sort of like a hunter sort of type of personality. It is very off-putting sometimes to other men, but for women, and this is just sort of a gene thing. It just shows that this person's type of behavior is very sort of desirable in that way. You want to be with somebody who is going to be motivated and knows what they want. And also, it's one of those things in which, like, is it a sign of weakness? Is being too nice a problem? No. Like, you should be nice to people. You should not consider it a weakness. But at the same time, you can be nice with somebody, but you can also be very, very confident with that same person and say, look, you're a beautiful woman. I think you're fantastic. Let's get the hell out of here. And just let's sort of go out there and like and do something else, because this scene doesn't like match up to how good looking you are. It's too dark in here. We need to go and play some, like, that is being nice and being confident at the same time. There are ways to sort of exude both, and like and it's playing that sort of balancing game with
I
regards
can
to it.
I can actually share an experience from a number of years ago that will show you the downside of this overconfidence, arrogance,
Hmm.
and how it can backfire.
Uh oh.
So
Do I know the
I had a
story?
friend. You might know the story. You probably were there. I don't know if you were drunk or not. I don't know. I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw it go down, but
Mm.
I guess we had a mutual friend years ago who was uh, in the military. So he got a lot of confidence from that, and it worked really well in a lot of ways. Um, but it also borderlined arrogance, and he would use that with women and with certain personality types. Um, and he could kind of pick out the ones. He could just be the sort of cocky guy that always threw out little insults and then basically domineered in a way, and would get attention from girls, and sometimes ones that had self-esteem issues, or uh, were looking for validation from him. So he did that for a while, and he was pretty successful with it. But as we got a little bit older, and women were coming into the scene that were much more confident in themselves, had themselves like uh, set up career wise, and intellectually had gone farther than he had as far as education, things like that, exposure, experience. Um, when he came up against them and he tried to use those old techniques, and that sort of cocky, confident, semi-arrogant thing, he got shut down immediately and in a grand fashion in front of everyone. At a particular party we were at, there were two girls there, and they just looked at him like he was a clown. And I have never seen a man deflate so quickly in my life and scamper off and hide in the dark corner. Uh, I think it was a learning experience for him, but I think basically what it was he realized that there are certain people that are just better than his game,
Mm-hmm.
and that his, putting on airs just doesn't work with people who can see through it and people who are very confident in themselves. So, you know, this guy that's trying to think about how this user here that wrote to us, or that put the Reddit post up, I think he's looking for some kind of game or some kind of manipulative technique that he can use to convince people that he is an asshole or he's arrogant or something, to therefore get more attention,
Mm-hmm.
instead of actually understanding that who you are will get you what you put out. What you put out there will get you that kind of thing. So if you're an asshole, you're going to get a certain kind of person back, and
Mm-hmm.
you need to think about, do you actually want that? And you know, a lot of people, they get trapped because uh, they're trying to be something that they're not, because they think it's better, or it'll get them more swipes on Tinder or whatever else, and they end up failing at it, or they end up succeeding at it and then having to maintain something that they are not, which is really exhausting.
Yeah.
So,
Mm-hmm.
uh, best case, you should just be yourself, have healthy confidence, just, be honest, because people are going to see through it eventually, or you're going to have to act for the rest of your life. And that's not going to be comfortable.
As the kids say today, you do you. You do you. So, like, honesty and a true personality comes out way, way better in the end. And you're right. Like, you draw what you go, you 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 basically get what you put out there. And in this particular case, maybe he's had some bad luck. Maybe he's just met some just not particularly nice women that maybe he fell for a particular type or something. But well, it's just part of the sort of risks of dating. And you just sort of have to figure out these things as it goes along. Are you dating the wrong type of girl? Should you be experimenting with something else? Should you be more honest with yourself? It's like, or are you the asshole? It's like, is it just
Yep.
something? Yeah, it's like, is there any little bit of self reflection there that maybe you could be projecting something on other guys? I don't know. But in the end, it's just one of those things in which it's like everybody deals with this, but it's more about you being honest with yourself and being able to you know, sort of stay up there. So keep your chin up. By being honest and being yourself, you'll eventually find somebody who will be that significant other that you wanted and won't leave you for a quote asshole. So,
Yep.
so we have a little bit of time here, I think, here at the end, where we can talk about a little bit of a bonus topic where it is not Reddit related, but it's one of those things in which I think, Tim, you've been wanting to talk about for the last two shows, and I think it's a very helpful topic for those on Twitch. So we can sort of close up the show here with a little final topic, and that is, how do you indicate that you are into somebody? Now, this is not, you are, if you are watching Twitch, especially this late at night on the East Coast, you are not 10 years old. You do not hit women. You do not throw things at them. You do not steal their lunch. You do not do all sorts of other things. That will backfire on you. Women, you should not treat women like you are in kindergarten. If you do like somebody, when kids have no idea how to express their feelings to one another, and it usually comes out in some sort of trickster sort of way. We have a friend that for a long, long time thought that messing with women in the sense of insulting them was a way of actually hitting on them. That is wrong. So, um, the indications though that if you are into somebody, or if somebody is that, or if that somebody is into you, there are subtle little things. Um, you know, physical contact, touching on the shoulder, hugging, a little thing like that in not normal situations can be one. Hell, just blatant honesty is another one. I really like you. I think you're great. Fantastic. That doesn't sort of happen a lot of times because people are very coy. I mean, there are the indication that I was with this girl that she liked me. She literally had to come out and say it, but we were watching television, then all of a sudden, her head is in my chest, and she just sort of like leaned over, and we were just sort of cuddling there on the couch. Nothing said, nothing happened, nothing like no words or anything. All of a sudden, like her head is right there on my chest. We're watching TV, and I was like, you
She's
know,
bold.
she bold, but I'm dense, so therefore it was a good combination. So I mean, like Tim, you've been in relationships and you're now married. Like, what were the key signals that you wanted to indicate to your significant other that you were into somebody?
Oh, that's an interesting question because I kind of failed there, if I'm being honest. Early on, when we were first getting to know each other, we were spending a bunch of time together and talking a lot, and for me, the indication that things were going well was that we were spending so much time together and that we were having these really long conversations. I remember the very first conversation we had started off in an office space, and then we ended up talking in the elevator down out in front of the building, and then hour and a half later, standing in the night. This is after a long day at work. We're still standing out there in the night, chatting away, um, to the point that like we're like, oh yeah, we actually really need to get home to go to sleep to get to work the next day. Like this has gotten out of hand in a way, and
Hmm.
that indicated to me that things are going well. In this case, there was no real body language. I mean, there's laughing and smiling at each other, which is always an indication of something, but not necessarily romantic interest. But I took the cues and I said, okay, someone who's not really interested in knowing me wouldn't have spent the extra time here. So I asked her out to lunch, and then in the near future, we got together for lunch. And through the course of conversation during lunch, it became kind of clear that we were asking each other questions. Mm, I guess they just went a little deeper than what a random acquaintance would ask, and sort of leading into relationship stuff. And it's just sort of flowed naturally there. But where the fail came in was that after we went on a couple dates, I'm I'm kind of a slow roller, and it throws off a lot of women because they don't really know how to deal with someone who's not trying to get in their pants.
Hmm.
Like I, the fact that I was not trying to sleep with her and I wasn't hounding her, wasn't all over her or anything like that, had her question like, was I really into her? And I'm sorry, ladies, that you have to go through that with guys because that would be annoying as hell to me, to have someone just pounding at me. Well, maybe not. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
trying so hard. Um, so it came to a point where it was almost like it became awkward that something hadn't really happened yet. So I just took her hand and was holding her hand, walking with her, and that was like the breaking of the ice there. Just something
Mm.
simple like that. Um, and I'm not brazen. I'm not bold. I don't just jump in for a kiss or anything like that. Um, at least not with her. It's different. You get different vibes from people. Like people will send you signals in a way, and if you're looking for the right thing, you should be able to catch it. And so there's that body language stuff. Like if a person touches you, that is a massive indication because if they're not into you at all, they're not gonna. There's no reason for them to touch you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
And
right.
and I'm not saying like overread into it. Like if someone touches your shoulder or something like that, it does not mean you need to stick your tongue down their throat right then. Like
Hmm.
there's a negotiation, and there are things that go together, right? Prolonged eye contact, mimicking movements, right? So
Hmm.
sometimes just how you align your shoulders and the direct, what you do with your legs and your hands and things like that. If you find the other person is mimicking you subconsciously, that's an indication that things are going well.
Yeah.
uh, Go ahead.
Extreme attentiveness. Like if somebody is really into what you are saying, the interest is there. You can sort of judge. The thing about it is everybody has issues sort of trying to figure out like people. Like if you're very not adept at sort of trying to figure other people out, this could be a lot harder than other people because some other people are very good at reading body language, and there are of course body language indicators. Um, a lot of the times, like there are ones that are somewhat typical, like if If you're a male and you're looking at a female and she is sort of giggling a lot at sort of stupid jokes that you say, playing with her hair a little bit, making sure that she like is trying at least sort of focused on you, and that's a good sign. That is showing interest and showing stuff like that. But it also could be, you have to be careful of, when somebody's just trying to be friendly, not trying to be actually attracted to you. So, there's always little things that you sort of are wearing on. And it's sort of a treacherous sort of path, because if you're not good or are very inexperienced at sort of reading emotions or reading body language or reading things like that, then it's going to be trial and error, right? I mean, you're just going to have to sort of figure it
Yeah.
out as you go along. But
Yeah. I
personally,
think people are
yeah.
going to. I mean, they know what they want, right?
Hmm.
And if both people want the same thing, it's going to move in that direction. So it's a very rare case where both people were totally interested and totally wanting to get this thing going, and it just didn't happen because neither of them was moving it at all. Like if you both are so incapable of outwardly expressing interest and reading each other's signals, and you're just standing there awkwardly together, then maybe you need to do something. You need to push yourself outside of your comfort zone, and just try something subtle that allows them the opportunity to then try something subtle and take those baby steps towards each other. Um, but for the most part, it's not as hard as everyone makes it out to be. Generally, the biggest problem on the way is that they are not confident and that they're worried about being rejected and they don't want to fail.
Yeah,
And if you just say, I think everything's adding up, that things are going well, take a chance.
that's right.
And
Hmm.
worst case you fail, worst case you get turned down. But no one's really no one's really going to hold that against you. And it's not like you get like a scarlet letter for it or anything. That's just you shot your shot and you didn't get it this time, so that's fine.
There's one truth in the world that people sort of find hard to sort of understand, is that everybody misses. It's like you are not ever 100% successful when trying to get a girl to go out with you or to sort of reciprocate feelings, because you know what? If everybody was 100%, everybody would be in relationships. It's the part of being the fear of rejection is something that you do have to overcome as you get older. But you know, the indications that you were into someone like is very very important. You want to make sure that like you're trying to see read all the little things, and then when it comes down to it, you have to use your mouth, and you basically have to say,
Mm.
I really like you. I think I really like you. What do you think about me? Because sometimes it really does take a straight up conversation after a while, even if you've been dating, to just sort of indicate and make sure that the feelings are the same. And you had this where you weren't very pursuant in the sexual matter or something like that, and it just confused your significant other. And sometimes like it gets to that point where like you have to indicate with your voice and basically say, I really like you. It's like, I think I want this relationship to keep going, and I want it to go get even more serious. And then you sort of have to indicate where you're doing. But you know, the hand touching, the abnormal amount of favors that somebody will do for you, the going out of your way to pick you up or drop you off or spend time with you, very good signals about things that you should be sort of looking into on how you indicate that somebody is either into you or you're into them. A lot of times in the DC area, if you're willing to drive over an hour to see somebody, that's love. I
Right,
mean,
but in the DC area, driving an hour sometimes is like 15 miles.
that's exactly right. So it's like, oh, I'm going to the next county. Oh, it's going to take an hour. Uh, but it's the effort that's involved. It's that little extra that you sort of put in, even though, like, and you understand the situation. You could be single. He knows that. She knows that. Um, why is he spending so much time with you? Why is he trying to do all of these things? Why is he being so nice? And it's like, and do you like the attention? And then you go for it. It's always a tricky question, right? It's always just one of those things in which everybody will have issues with it. Everybody will have failures, will have successes when they recognize it. But when it's a success, you just sort of go, it's like,
Sure.
and yeah, and it's what it is.
It's funny though, because on people that are doubting, self-doubting that maybe not they don't have that confidence will sometimes miss the signals. Like someone else will take their shot and they'll just miss it because they didn't expect it.
Hmm.
They're like, oh, why would that person? Yeah, I've had a couple of these kind of things where like there was one time at a party in Maryland. Oh god, it was a long time ago. This girl was talking to me and I was there with somebody else, so I don't know what she was thinking, or maybe she just didn't see or something.
Or
But
she didn't care.
she, yeah, but like we're in the middle of a conversation and like about nothing, and then she just throws in a sentence, "Hey, do you want to go in that room and make out with me?" And I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what?" Nothing in our conversation has led us anywhere in that direction, and I actually started laughing because I was embarrassed, and she
Yeah,
thought I was laughing at her as though it would be an inappropriate thing or something. I don't really know what she was thinking, but I told her I said, "No, I'm not
she was
laughing at you.
thinking she wanted to make out with you.
I'm
That's what she wanted.
just
That she was
I
thinking.
just have never been so explicitly approached like that before." And
Gotta love the
it was weird.
confidence, though, right? That.
Yeah, sure. You know what? More power to her because that's the kind of thing that will get results. I I don't know if I threw her off her game that night because that
Well,
blew it up a little bit, but whatever. You know,
guys don't
interesting
normally
experience.
turn down women who were just like, "Hey, let's go make out." You were with somebody else at the time. You were being truthful to your significant other at that party, but it was something. It's like, oh, I appreciate the aggression. Thank you very much. But unfortunately, not today. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an odd one.
Hey, it's fun. It's like, you like the attention. You like, as we had with our previous commenter about, uh, you know, seeking attention and validation. Sometimes it's like it's really nice when somebody thinks of you that way. It's actually really cool. But in the end, it's like, when how you indicate that you're into someone, there's just various ways. Everybody's different. And you just don't want to miss those signals, let's just say. Always, and if you have the ability to take your shot, you should absolutely do it because the only thing that can come of it is that the person turns you down. And that feeling ends up going away when you find the next person. So, you know.
Also,
Uh,
I don't know. Before we wrap up here,
yeah, yeah.
I think there is something about going explicit. And I don't mean like that girl saying, "Hey, do you want to make out?" But I mean, you can take a conversation very easily from just normal chit chat to something that has a romantic tinge that will give that person the opportunity to make things somewhat known, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think talking about dating in general is a good way of getting people to show their hand. So if someone's actually interested in you and you start talking about dating, through the course of like, it can be a funny thing. You'd be like, "Oh man, I had this horrible date. Uh, oh man, online dating sucks." Oh, just like whatever your topic is. If you go that way, first of all, you're going to probably find out whether or not they're single or not, which is pretty important information.
Mm-hmm.
Second, you might find something that you agree on and like something you can laugh about together and something kind of brings you closer. And if they see, okay, this person's single and they have had some of the same issues I have, and like if they are interested in you anyway, they can through the course of that topic let it be known, and that'll at least give you kind of an in.
Yep. Exactly. So, various ways. There are all sorts of different things that are involved in all of it, and it's different for everyone. I mean, is there, like, just to close it off, is there anything in the modern age? We're old fogies. So, like, is there anything, like, in the sort of current day and age that would be an indicator? I mean, everybody's, like, sort of technology heavy at this point. Like, Tinder has become the overwhelmingly, like, number one app for, young adults when looking for hookups or even relationships. Is there anything in a quote Tinder chat that you should be looking out for besides, hey, let's hook up. you know.
No, I mean, if you're,
Uh,
I mean, indicating you're into someone on Tinder is swiping.
yeah.
It's there is no easier way to indicate, and like that like if that had been around when we were younger in the game like that,
it
in
it
college and
would
that kind of thing,
yeah, it would have made
it
it
would have
so much easier.
revolutionized everything. It just would have been incredible. Uh, and it cuts out some of the unnecessary icky feelings when you're going through that stuff in the beginning.
hmm
Um, but it also opens up a whole other slew of problems. And every topic we've had tonight can be connected to that as well. Um, so I would say, if you see that the person you're hanging out with, if they are on Tinder, it's clear that they are out there looking. It doesn't necessarily mean they're looking for you, but at least you know that that's a possibility, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So so let's end the show on that. Hopefully, people have found today's show very, very helpful. Let's just go over a couple of things again. Just want to make sure if you do want to contact us about a personal issue and you want our advice, you can email us at twitchlinelove@gmail.com. We'll keep your identity secret. You can email from a burner email address, and we will just refer to it. And we will use your email as a basis for one of our conversations. If you'd like to tweet us or follow us, just hit, go to Twitter and you can go to TwitchLine at TwitchLine. You can follow us on Twitter. We'll be hosting live updates of our show and when they air. Definitely give us a follow here up top. If you've liked what you've heard, definitely we're trying to do our best with the show. We're still experimenting with it, lengths, times, and also look out for more shows because we are going to be doing a Sunday show on more of a regular basis here, just trying to earn the affiliate status, so that we can actually do a little bit more and have a little bit more functionality here on Twitch so that we can do more things and more fun activities to you. Possible show could include signing me up for online dating, and we follow the process of myself and how we sort of do and what you should be filling in, what you should be including, what you should not be including is also very important. Things like that. So give us a drop us a line if you want to see specific aspects of relationship world here in the 21st century. So any final comments here, Tim, on today's show?
Oh, yeah, just that I think going forward, we're going to try to branch out a little bit as far as some of our topics. I think they tend to be male centric
Mm-hmm.
only because a lot of Reddit are males talking about their relationship problems. Like there are female ones, but I just mean, it's two guys sitting here talking about love and life experience, and it often leads or leans into a male perspective. So we're trying to be cognizant of that and uh, consider things from all perspectives. So if there's something you think as the viewers you'd like us to to check in on or to expand our thoughts on, considering other perspectives, then please let us know.
Yes, yes, and we'll experiment. We'll have a female guest on the show. We can talk about, and then we could absolutely have multiple perspectives with regards to certain situations. So hopefully, drop us a line. We want to make the show better. We want to make it more fun. We want to make it as entertaining and enjoyable and helpful as possible. But that's going to do it for us. I am Hodo. That was Acorn. It's Z and Tim here with TwitchLine tonight. Hopefully, everybody found today's conversation very, very helpful. And you can check us out on YouTube if you want to see a replay of the show. And you can see the specific topics as we will try to mark them and timestamp them so you can go to a specific topic that will be listed in the comments. But for both of us, we are outie. Have a good evening and hopefully have a good rest of the week.
Yeah, good night. Take care.